Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the latest installment of the 2020 Then and Now Fanfare History and Politics Lecture Series. My name is Dr. Bill Robeson, although I've been known to work around Fair and Hall as Dr. Craig Sochet. Anyway, it's my great pleasure and privilege to introduce this afternoon's speaker. It's Dr. Joe Burns. Dr. Burns is Professor of Communication in Southeastern's Department of Communications and Media Studies. He is the creator and the host of the award-winning, internationally syndicated radio show called Rock School, which you can hear on Southeastern's radio station KSLU. He has written and lectured about rock and roll for several years. He has played in a few bands and recorded with impaired faculties in Papalaga. He's a woodworker who builds his own guitars. I'm very excited. He's going to build me one, apparently. Moreover, Dr. Burns has been something of an institution right here at the Fanfare History Political Science Lecture Series. He's here every year to take us on a magical mystery tour of popular culture. And today, he's going to tell us about some rock and roll urban legends. So it is my great pleasure, and I'm delighted to introduce my good friend and one of the best kick-ass guitar players that I've ever heard, Dr. Joe Burns.
Better introduction than I deserve. I'm wearing my OK Boomer shirt today because this is what my daughter tells me if I try to give her any information about, anything. Now look, this is Urban Myths, so I have to prove to you that these things are a myth. I have to prove to you that these things aren't wrong. So I can't prove to you that Paul McCartney isn't dead. I can't prove to you that Keith Richards didn't snort his father's ashes. And I can't prove to you that Robert Johnson sold his soul to the devil. But for the next 46 items, I can prove to you that it didn't happen. Let's see how much you know. Who is this group? Yes, it is. It's Guns N' Roses. And I want to talk to you today about the Guns N' Roses LP called The Spaghetti Incident. Everybody was wondering what the Spaghetti Incident meant. Well, the story goes, or at least the story that's told to us, it goes this way. This guy is Steven Adler. He was a drummer for Guns N' Roses, and they kicked him out because he took too many drugs. How much drug must you take to get kicked out of Guns N' Roses? Well, he sues them, and it goes to court. In court, a story is told that he was taking so many drugs that he would hide them in the takeout boxes of this Italian restaurant, and the band began to refer to his drugs as spaghetti. So at one point in time, the lawyer looked at whoever was on the stand and said, "Tell us about the spaghetti incident." Okay, that's the story they told. That's not the true story. Here's the true story. Who is this band? No? Here's another one from the same band. Anybody?
Motley Crue.
Motley Crue. Good for you. I'm not interested in Motley Crue. I'm interested specifically in these two fellows. That's Nicky Sixx on the left, Tommy Lee on the right. During the Dr. Feelgood tour, what they did was made a bet with each other that they were, quote, thinking of stinking. So what they did was go as long as they could without taking a shower. I have read that it's been 2 days, I've read that it's 2 months, it's been 2 weeks. I'm more inclined to believe 2 weeks because I think after 2 months being on tour, your skin would begin to fall off of you. The story goes at the end of 2 weeks, Nicky Sixx wins the bet. Why? Because after a concert, Tommy Lee, the guy on the right, brings a lovely young lady who happened to have spaghetti for dinner to the backstage. Well, they begin to become amorous, and when she arrives at a certain portion of his anatomy, she barfs all over him. That is the spaghetti incident. Who is this? One Oh, if you didn't know Elvis, I was going to quit. You have probably heard the story that Elvis Presley died on the toilet. Did he? No. This is Elvis Presley the year that he dies, and that's Ginger Alden, the woman he was engaged to. The story goes that he decided that he had to go on tour because he had less than $1 million in the bank. Now, to you and me, that's a hell of a lot of money. It isn't to Elvis. He was a little bit up in his weight. So he was taking all kinds of diets and such, but he couldn't seem to lose any weight. Why? He was also hellaciously addicted to opioids. And if you know anything about opioids, if you take them, they can cause tremendous impacting. They can basically constipate you. He took so many that it shut down his digestive tract. He was a dead man 3 weeks before he actually died. Well, the story goes he lay down in bed with Ginger there, looked at her and said, I'm going to get up and go to the bathroom, you go to sleep. She does. He went in, was sitting on the toilet, and had what they call the widowmaker, the heart attack that ends you immediately. He got up off the toilet, walked about 5 steps, and fell outside of the bathroom with his pants down around his ankles. Not exactly much more pretty, but when somebody says he died on the toilet, he didn't die on the toilet. He died in the hallway outside of the toilet. Who is this? Really? Thank you. Please yell louder. Kiss. That's Kiss. I'm specifically worried about Gene Simmons of Kiss. First of all, there's a belief system that he had a cow's tongue grafted onto his own tongue. Not true. It won't work genetically. And second off, you can't park a Cadillac inside of a closet. A cow's head's this big. Gene Simmons' head is this big. There's also a belief that he had this linguist tendon under here cut. Not true. He's just simply being blessed with that. But the one I want to talk to you about is this. You see what he's doing with his left hand there? That is the devil sign. And in 1977, when that album came out, he attempted to trademark the devil sign. He didn't win. Why? Because this fella, Ronnie James Dio, said to him, are you kidding me? My grandmother was doing that when I was a child. It's from the old country of Sicily. It's actually done like this, not this. This. See how it kind of looks like a jackal? If you are going like this, you are protecting someone from the evil eye. If you're going like this, you are giving the person the evil eye. And so, the want to register that died. It came out a year later that Gene Simmons attempted to trademark the term orange juice. And when they went and asked him, he said, no, I didn't do any such thing. Where did it come from? Ronnie James Dio leaked a story to the press of the dumbest thing he could think that could be trademarked. And it got out into the press, and none of that is actually true. Click a button here. Who is this? Who? What?
Nancy.
Right, Nancy Sinatra. These boots are made for walking. With Nancy Sinatra, I'm interested in one thing. A lot of people believe she had ribs removed so she could look thinner. Is there a recorded opportunity of it happening? Yes. But it's by people who want to look a certain way. They want to make themselves into a Barbie doll, people that have concerns. However, this idea of having these floating ribs on the side of you removed is rather pervasive in rock and roll. It is said that Cher did it, and she hated it so much in the 1980s she had a doctor do an on-screen examination of her just to prove she had all of her ribs. It was also believed Raquel Welch did it, and Raquel Welch said, that's impossible, I like pasta too much. I look like this. It is believed that Marilyn Manson did it. Why? So he could bend over farther and have sex with himself. Sure, why not? But it's Nancy Sinatra. Notice the little lines right there? Nancy Sinatra said to her dad, who's Frank Sinatra, hey, they're doing this to me. They're making fun of me in the press and such. And Frank said to her, just agree with them. Absolutely any publication and publicity is better than none. So Frank Sinatra understood it way back then. All right, ladies and gentlemen, who is this? Anybody? How about this? Fleetwood Mac. Who's the lead singer of Fleetwood Mac? Who's the female lead singer? Stevie Nicks. Stevie Nicks has been dogged by a rumor for the longest time that she took way too much cocaine and blew a hole in her septum. That didn't happen. All she did was tear away the lining. It also happened to Linda Ronstadt. It also happened to Glenn Frey. You can't put a hole the whole way through it. The thing about it is, the story goes that she then did a boffo. She did a white peg. She did a booty bump. Ever heard of these? It's where you take a straw, put some cocaine in the end of it, insert it in the person's posterior, and go and blow it up into their butt. To which you say, people don't really do that, do they? Yes! Look it up. It's done with drugs and it's done with alcohol. And there's a lot of sites out there where doctors say, for the love of God, don't do it. Because there's like 5 times as many receptors in your than there is in your nose. And you can overdose right off the bat. Stevie Nicks said, no, absolutely not, I didn't do that. I couldn't take cocaine, so I just switched to alcohol. Okay, I believe that. But who did? These guys did. Rod Stewart and Ron Wood freely admit that they tried to do what they call a white peg. So what they did is they took cocaine and put it inside of those little gel capsules and then had those inserted into themselves. They said, we'll never do it again because apparently your colon doesn't have the same ability as your digestive tract to, get rid of the gel capsule. So all they did was poop out a hell of a lot of very expensive cocaine. So has it happened? Yeah, but not to Stevie Nicks. Fair enough. Who's this? Thank you. That is Van Halen. What I'm interested in, by the way, rest in peace, Eddie Van Halen. I thought someday I would get to meet him. The hours I spent trying to play like him, and I never sounded like him. I sounded like me trying to play him, So here's what I'm interested in. There is an urban myth about Van Halen that they are wicked misdemeanor rock stars who do terrible things to other people because they can. And what happens is people point to a specific thing. In their 1983 rider, which is the contract that arrives at the venue before the concert goes on, it asks for the amount of electricity, it asks for what they want backstage to eat. And in their 1983 and 1984 rider, it said M&Ms. Absolutely no brown ones. You're not allowed to have brown M&Ms backstage at the Van Halen concert. Why? Well, because they're jerks, because they're rich, spoiled kids. Absolutely not. This was their 1984 tour. What they did was take more lights on tour than any other band ever at the time. Bigger stage, more amplification. As a matter of fact, they hired a lady to be on staff, and her whole job was to make sure they were indeed the largest touring band for 2 years. Well, the problem is, there's so much electricity and so many ways to die. There used to be a sign backstage that said, nothing here is worth dying for. And the brown M&Ms proved to the band whether the contract rider was red or not. So if they went backstage and there were no brown M&Ms, or there were brown M&Ms, you didn't read the rider. So we got to make sure everything is safe, if not postpone the concert. So it had nothing to do with rock star misdemeanor excess. What it had to do with was making sure everybody was safe. That's why there were no brown M&Ms. Okay, I'm going to put this thing on here. This thing's called a capo. It's Italian for head. This is the head of the guitar. I'm basically just taking the head and moving it down 4 steps. And this, see if you can tell me who this is. The older people in the crowd should get it immediately. Anybody? Buddy Holly. That would be the day that I died. Buddy Holly supposedly has a curse that follows him around, and it's killed multiple people. That's Buddy Holly on the right. The guy on the left is Waylon Jennings. Buddy Holly dies on the 3rd of February, 1959, after a concert at Clear Lake, Iowa Ballroom. What happened was he, Buddy Holly, charters a plane to get them to the next place, and Waylon Jennings was supposed to be on that plane. Well, the Big Bopper, who was also on the tour, came in and said, look, I got the flu, man, I'm dying, the bus doesn't have a heater. And after prod, finally, Waylon Jennings says, okay, get on the plane. As the Big Bopper's leaving the room, he stopped, turned around, pointed at Buddy Holly and Waylon Jennings and said, I hope your old bus freezes. Apparently Waylon Jennings turned around and said, I hope your old plane crashes. It did. And that supposedly begins the Buddy Holly curse. A year before, almost to the day, this fella here, his name is Joe Meek, he worked as an engineer for Buddy Holly. He went to a tarot card reader and was told, the man you're working with will die a year from today. This is Maria Elena. She miscarried Buddy Holly's baby after the crash. This is Ronnie Smith, that's Eddie Cochran. Eddie Cochran was supposed to be on the tour, but he dropped out and got scared that he had somehow cheated death. He dies less than a year later in a car crash in London. This is Ronnie Smith. Ronnie Smith takes over for Buddy Holly in the Winter Dance Party tour, and a year after he gets off the tour, he has nervous breakdowns and is put into a mental hospital for the rest of his life. This is Cowboy Copas. Cowboy Copas played a lot with Buddy Holly and dies in a plane crash with Patsy Cline. This is David Box. David Box was the last singer of the Crickets. As a matter of fact, the song Peggy Sue Got Married, that was sung by David Box. David Box, after leaving the Crickets, dies in a small plane crash on his way to play a festival. This again is Bobby Fuller, as in I fought the law and the law won. He got his recording contract by sending tapes to Buddy Holly, Buddy Holly's manager, Buddy Holly's family. He was found 2 years after in a car. He owed a lot of money to the mob, and when they did the autopsy, it was almost a gallon of gasoline in his stomach. Here's Joe Meek again. Joe Meek, on the 8th anniversary of Buddy Holly's death, is shot by his landlady. This is, that's Gary Busey. Gary Busey starred in the Buddy Holly story, and after filming Wrapped, got into a terrible motorcycle accident and has had brain damage. If you've seen him lately, you probably understand that. This is Keith Moon. Keith Moon dies the night after seeing the Buddy Holly story. This is Mark Bolan of T-Rex. When he dies in a car crash, he's wearing a pin that said, every day is Buddy Holly Day. This is Bill Pickering over on the left. Bill Pickering sang at Buddy Holly's funeral and within 2 years had a series of strokes and died. This is Del Shannon. Del Shannon played the 31st anniversary of the death of Buddy Holly at the Clear Lake Ballroom, and the next day put a bullet inside of his head. Are there more? Yeah. You just got the ones that were close enough to seem somewhat plausible. Okay, without doing music, let's do the lightning round. Ready? No, Keith Richards did not travel to Switzerland to have his blood exchanged to get off of heroin. You can't. He did, however, go to Switzerland and do some dialysis. Lou Reed did not get children crying on the album Berlin by telling them that their parents died. He does have children crying, but he got them to cry by telling them they had to go to bed. No, the Beatles did not smoke marijuana in Buckingham Palace. Did they have a cigarette break? Yes, they did. However, Even Paul McCartney admits, I don't know where the story came from. We never smoked marijuana inside of Buckingham Palace. No, Phil Collins did not watch a man watch another man drown and then write the song. There's also a belief system that the man who watched another man drown, isn't this confusing, was at one of Phil Collins' concerts, and he put the spotlight on him and then composed the song on the fly to shame the man. No, it's absolutely not true. Phil Collins himself admits it's a song about his divorce from one of his wives, and he says it's childish. I would not save you if I saw you drowning. No! Puff the Magic Dragon is not about smoking marijuana. Or at least so says the guy on the left named Leonard Lipton. He was a freshman at Cornell University in 1959 and read a poem by Ogden Nash about a dragon that lived in the campus library, and he simply said, I can write a better poem than that. It's not about marijuana. No, the band 311 is not aligned with racist and white supremacist groups. Some people think that the 11th letter of the alphabet is K, and there are 3 Ks. Thus, they might be white supremacists. And a lot of white supremacist groups do use numeric things to make sure they know each other. In reality, 311 is the code for indecent exposure in Omaha, Nebraska, because the lead singer and his girlfriend were found skinny dipping. No, Roy Orbison is not legally blind. When he was a young artist and was at Sun Records, the owner of Sun Records at the time, his name's Sam Phillips, told him he looked weird because his eyes were too close together, which is why he wears the sunglasses. No, Marilyn Manson did not try out for the Monkees. Was there an open call? Yes. Was it for guys 17 to 24? Yes. Was Manson 17 to 24? Yes. Was he in jail? Yes. So he couldn't have. No, Avril Lavigne did not die in 2003 and was replaced by a woman named Melissa. How do we know this? DNA records? No. The whole thing was started by a blog in Brazil named Avril Está Muerta. And the whole purpose was to see how far they could get an internet rumor to go. No, Frank Zappa's father is not Mr. Green Jeans from Captain Kangaroo. Mr. Green Jeans was played by a guy named Hugh Brannon, no relation. Frank Zappa's father is Frank Zappa Sr. And his mother's name, if you want to know, is Rosemary. No, Marilyn Manson did not play Paul Pfeiffer on The Wonder Years. Paul Pfeiffer was played by Josh Salvino, who later became a lawyer. When the movie or the television show was airing, Marilyn Manson was known as Brian Hugh Warner and was studying journalism and writing at Broward County Community College. No, Alice Cooper did not sacrifice a chicken on stage in Detroit. What happened? In Detroit, he was playing a concert. Someone in the crowd brought a chicken. They threw it on stage. Alice Cooper says, I swear I thought chickens could fly. So he threw the chicken back out to the audience, and it flew for about 30 seconds, and the audience ripped it apart. It hits the press and all that. At the time, Frank Zappa was his manager, and brought him into his office and said, did you sacrifice a chicken on stage? And he said, no, of course not. And Zappa says, well, for the love of God, don't say anything. It's the greatest publicity you've had. No, Kylie Minogue did not insure her butt for $5 million. However, I cannot tell you that the rumor that Jennifer Lopez insured her butt for $27 million isn't true. I just know this one isn't. No, Mick Jagger was never found eating a Mars bar from his then-girlfriend Marian Faithfull. Story goes that the two of them were busted for LSD possession and distribution. The police report, the news stories, nothing mentions a Mars bar. Even he, Mick Jagger, says, I have no idea. And isn't a Mars bar kind of specific? Marian Faithfull said, it never happened previous, and it never happened anywhere in the future. No, Frank Zappa did not eat a pile of Captain Beefheart's poop. The thought process went they were having a gross-out contest on their tour. Captain Beefheart thought he would win by walking to the middle of the stage and dropping a deuce. There's no record of that happening. Thus, no record of Frank Zappa saying good try and then winning the gross out contest by consuming the poop. Frank Zappa even addresses it in one of his autobiographies by saying, I assumed somebody had an idea and I was the first artist he thought would actually do it. So that's what happened to the story. No, change. There was no. Johnny Ace did not kill himself playing Russian roulette. The story goes that Johnny Ace was on tour with Big Mama Thornton, as in You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog. He finishes his set and they're preparing for Big Mama Thornton to come on stage. She was backstage and Johnny, who liked the drink, was apparently halfway to the label and started waving around a pistol. And Big Mama Thornton went, You're scaring me. Put that thing away. And he went, oh, it's not even loaded. Blam! And she ran out on stage and yelled, Johnny Ace done killed himself. That's what actually happened. No, Michael Jackson did not try to buy the Elephant Man's bones back in 1987. Why? Well, they didn't exist. The Elephant Man's bones were destroyed in a bombing at the Royal London Hospital in the Second World War. The only thing that exists are casts and bones made from the cast of the Elephant Man, and according to the hospital, they had never been for sale, and they had never been contacted by Michael Jackson. No, Led Zeppelin did not assault a groupie with a mud shark. What happened was, the group was at the Seattle Edgewater Hotel. It's a hotel where you can fish from your balcony. And apparently they pulled up some red snappers. And one of the road managers, his name Richard Cole, simply took one of the red snappers and went up to one of the groupies and went boop, 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 and then that was it. Somehow it got turned into a full rape and absolutely no one has any idea why it became a mud shark. And finally, no, Rod Stewart did not have a cup, a pint, a quart, a gallon of human semen pumped out of his stomach. When the story broke, they sort of reverse engineered it, and it was from an assistant that he had to fire. That's where the story came from. Thus ends the lightning round. Who is this artist? Anybody? Blondie, right. Blondie claims that she was picked up by Ted Bundy. Here's the story. In the late 1970s, before Blondie was in a band, she was walking around the lower part of Manhattan. A guy pulled up next to her in a white, that matters, a white Volkswagen Bug and says, hey, I'll give you a ride. She's an idiot. She claims it herself. I'm an idiot. I got in the car. When she gets in, it occurs to her there's no back seat. And the panel on the side of the door had been taken off. There was no crack for the window and no way to open the door. He starts to drive away. Luckily, she's smart enough. There was a crack at the top of the window. She grabbed it, pulled it down, opened the door, and rolled out. The car drove away. All the way up until 1989, she has claimed that it was Ted Bundy. In fact, I've heard other people say she's denied it, but I've never seen where she specifically says it. Do I believe this happened to her? Yes. Do I believe it was Ted Bundy? No. It couldn't have been. The timelines don't line up. Ted Bundy did the majority of his killing in the Pacific Northwest. Now, there was a time that he went down to Florida. Could he have driven from Florida all the way up to New York, performed this, and then driven all the way back? Could it have happened? Yeah, but when he was in Florida, he was a wanted man. So probably didn't happen. Did it happen to her? Yes, I believe that wholeheartedly. Was it Ted Bundy? Probably not. All right, who's this band?
Turner Overdrive.
Bachman Turner Overdrive. My God, am I glad you came to this lecture. Bachman Turner Overdrive tells a wonderful story that they themselves absolutely know is fake. But they tell it anyway because it's a good story. The story goes, and I have the truth too, the story goes that Bachman Turner Overdrive were in Seattle inside of a suite of studios, like 4 studios in the same building. And they were recording this song. There's a knock at the door, and there was a guy there to deliver pizzas. And he said, "Hey, are you," and I've heard it's about 10 different groups. Let's go with Steve Miller, because that's the one I've heard a bunch of times. "Hey, are you Steve Miller?" "No, we're Bachman Turner Overdrive, but hey, since you're here, pizza guy, listen to this new song." "That's great. It needs a piano part." "Oh, okay, great." He said, "I'll play it." The pizza guy. "Okay." So they roll the tape. It's a lie. They roll the tape, and the pizza guy plays it in one take. Then he delivers his pizza and leaves. We don't know who he is. We tried to find him, and it's not him. What a lie. Who played the piano? This guy played the piano. His name's Norman Durkee. He was working with one of the bands and another one. The band thought, "Hey, you know what? We need a piano." And he walked up, "Hey, he's playing piano." They brought him in. He tried it twice. They took the second take, and they paid him $90. That's it. But it makes for a great story. But the thing about it is, it's a whole lot like Blue Oyster Cult. Blue Oyster Cult is known, I guess by you guys, for this on Saturday Night Live. "I need more cowbell." Right? The story goes that the cowbell was just played by the drummer. But in the bit, there is apparently a guy named Gene Frankel who's being played over there by Will Ferrell. Here's the thing, it's so damn popular that the guys in Blue Oyster Cult actually tell stories about Gene Frankel in their interviews. Gene played with us for a while, but man, we were going different directions. They had this whole thing set up. One more really fun, interesting thing about it is that the character over there that calls for more cowbell, his name is Bruce Dickinson. And people are like, "Nah, Bruce Dickinson isn't a real producer, man. He didn't produce, any BTO." Wrong! He didn't produce the original version of Here Comes the Reaper, Don't Fear the Reaper. However, they had it remixed. And the story goes that they were inside, the Saturday Night Live writers were inside of a music room, and they went and they got the Blue Oyster Cult, but it was the remix album. So that's where Bruce Dickinson comes from. All right? Tell me, if you can, I never played this right. Tell me who this is. I told you I never played it right. Who is that? That's Van Morrison and Brown Eyed Girl. This is a fantastic little one because the fake is easily pushed away, but then there's a real reason. Listen. Brown Eyed Girl by Van Morrison means heroin. When you take a spoon and you put heroin in the middle of it, and then you light underneath it, it burns in a perfect circle. It's the brown eye. And then there's a line in the song that goes, slipping and sliding. That's the needle going into the arm. And then hiding out under the waterfall, under the stadium with you, my brown-eyed girl. He's got to get away to take heroin. Is it true? No, of course not. It's freely admitted what the song is about. A brown-skinned girl. That was the original lyric, not brown-skinned girl. And very few people know who this woman is, but apparently she had a magnificent effect upon Van Morrison. But this was 1967 when it was done, and the people at the record company said, "You may want to change that to something," and it got changed to Brown Eyed Girl. But apparently this woman had such an effect, he still is in contact with her. All right, let me do one more for you here. It's got to be on here. The capo one more time. All the leaves are green. Who is that? Mamas and the Papas. But I don't want to worry about the group. I want to tell you about Mama Cass. Mama Cass supposedly died choking on a ham sandwich. Absolutely not true. She dies back in 1974. She was 32 years old. She was living in a flat owned by another person, and she had a heart attack. She was a heavy smoker, heavy drinker. There was this belief system that she was perfectly fine with her weight. There's a song called Creek Alley where they go, no one's getting fat except Mama Cass. And she was perfectly fine with it. Wrong. She disliked the fact that she was overweight and went on terrible yo-yo diets, all while, again, drugs, alcohol, cigarettes. And at age 32, her heart just gave out. She died. Okay, where did the ham sandwich come from? There was indeed a ham sandwich and a Coke next to her in the bed where she died. Was it said at the police briefing? Maybe. Was it said by Dr. Anthony Greenberg? Maybe. Was it simply inside of the autopsy? Maybe. But somewhere the ham sandwich idea got out, and somewhere it became, she died on the ham sandwich. By the way, it gets better than that. She was in the apartment owned by Harry Nielsen. Harry Nielsen got scared of the apartment, so he was renting it out. He was renting it out to Keith Moon. Keith Moon dies in the apartment 4 years and a couple months later. So, Harry Nielsen gets scared, sells the apartment to Pete Townsend, who was also in The Who. Pete Townsend wanted to own it so it wouldn't become some kind of a grave site for fans to come to. He finally sold it in 2011 when a developer decided to tear and gut the whole building out and make them high-end apartments. But it doesn't end there. This guy, Harry Nielsen, was supposedly a multimillionaire. He supposedly had $8 million in the bank. Well, the woman he entrusted his finances to, her name was Cindy Simmons, wiped him out overnight. He has a massive heart attack. He becomes a frail human being. He has massive debts. And in his massive debts, all he can do is play for other people's bands. There's stories of people lending him money. Ringo Starr apparently gave him $25,000. And about 3 years after that, he has one final heart attack and it kills him. Cindy Simmons goes to jail for all the money. She served 18 months. Isn't that awful? Well, that's what I had in terms of myths. But if you'd like, I can tell you a couple truths to finish it off. Would you like to know?
Yeah.
Why in the world do people hold up lighters at concerts? Well, there's a whole lot of theories as to why, but most people think it's this. This is Melanie. My guess is you know Melanie from I Got a Brand New Pair of Roller Skates. You got a brand new key. If you didn't, big folk singer in the 1960s. Well, she played at Woodstock. And she was the first act after that deluge downpour. And what she did was have her people hand out candles. And she said from the stage, "Let us light the candles and hold them to the heavens to keep the rain away." A woeful misunderstanding of meteorology, but we believe it's where it started. It's the earliest use of it. Bob Dylan has claimed and a few other things, but this is probably where it started. And the last one. Why do drunk idiots at concerts yell, "Free bird"? God, I have always wanted to be in a band that knew the song Free Bird. And I mean the whole damn 10-minute thing. So when somebody went, "Free Bird," okay, and then we played the whole thing just to shut them up. Where did it come from? Well, the original came from this. This was a live album by Leonard Skinner in Atlanta. At the end of the concert, Van Zandt, the lead singer of Leonard Skinner, says, "What song is it you want to hear?" And people yell, "Free Bird." Okay, fine. Is that where it came from? Probably not. It probably came from this fella. His name is Kevin Matthews. He's a disc jockey from Chicago. And one of his bits was to give away concert tickets to concerts none of his listeners would want to go to. And then he would have them do silly things when they were there. Well, Florence Henderson Mrs. Brady came to Chicago and he gave away a block of 25 tickets and told his people, every time Miss Brady asks you any question, how you doing tonight? Free bird! It went over so well and received so much press that he started giving away other tickets. The other one that I know of was Jim Neighbors, who played Gomer Pyle. And what's funny is Jim didn't understand any of it. Jim Neighbors was at a concert and people yelled Freebird and he kept saying, I don't know the song, guys. If I knew the song, I'd sing it for you. So that's where it came from. So to end this thing, here's your free bird. That's the best way I can do it. And that wraps it up. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to my crackpot theories.
Any questions for Dr. Carter?
Oh, yeah. I think I've spilled all the tea. See, I have done her. I know the cool. Nothing? All right, don't catch COVID. See you later.